Okay, let's talk about etude number one. I think by far this is the hardest etude. It's just a lot of simple difficulties that can make this etude really hard. I'll just start off by leading with the notes. The 5/8 allegro is a 3+2 beat feel. Remember, practicing slow is the key to making it sound easy, and perfection is the goal. You may vary dynamics and add a few articulations. Go for what sounds the best. So, how do I interpret this? Obviously, practice slowly. Do not go about this thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna absolutely practice this at tempo, because the notes aren't terribly hard. It's just you really want to figure out what makes this piece yours, That's why it says you may vary dynamics and add a few articulations. Go for what sounds best. Sometimes the contour changes. I'm going to try to find an example now. Like here at the beginning. And then later on. Sometimes instead of going down, it goes up, and whatever the case may be, you want to bring that out or sort of take that away. But you have to do whatever you want to do convincingly. You can't just go about this and be like, I'm going to half do it, half try it. Then it's going to sound like you don't know the piece. That's really something you don't want. And practice slow. Go for consistency. There are a couple times in this performance that I hesitated on just going through some of the notes, and that's just partly me just trying to record it, because I feel like I can do it, and just giving myself the leeway, because a lot of people record, and when you record, when the camera's on, it's a lot harder to execute something at a high level, which is something I'm trying to get used to. So that's another reason. But so, very dynamics just at the beginning. Obviously started at mezzo forte because that is the recommended dynamic, but figure out what you want to do there. And I wouldn't recommend changing articulations unless you really can make it convincing. Like maybe here at the beginning you could go. piece by doing that. Whatever you decide to do, make it convincing. That's really the hardest part about this piece. You know, after like a couple weeks or a couple months of slow practice with a metronome and with a tuner, this etude is going to be played really, really well by everyone, you know? Like there's not going to be any question about the notes and the rhythm. It's really going to be, how do you interpret this and how can you make this different in a good way? How, just like the second etude. Yeah, I feel like that's what makes number 1 and number 2 so hard. Number 3 is just straightforward, clean, articulation, good tone, all the time. But this, I'm not saying you could, or like you should, but I feel like you can get away with sometimes flubbing a couple notes because your interpretation is just so good. It's just really important to really know what you want to do. And obviously at the end, there's only 3 dynamics in this whole piece. Mezzo forte, forte, and piano. Really, make that a difference. At the end, ba 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 beep beep ba ba ba. Like really make that sudden difference. And especially in the crescendo, there's no crescendos except the one at the end. So really make that part true to the music. I wouldn't change anything there because it was written there for a reason. So make that true to the music. But I feel like everything else, if you just want to make subtle articulation switches and things here and there, you can if you want to. Personally, I wouldn't if I was auditioning. But if you can make it convincing and you really have a good reason to do so, just make sure it's consistent, have a good plan. Don't go in here learning the notes and rhythms and think, I don't have a game plan for anything else and expect that to go well, Know what you want to do with the piece. It's a playful little piece, so make sure your articulations aren't too heavy. I feel like sometimes, for me, I got really tense and I started to really lock up my air and my tongue started to get heavy. But really, when I got into these softer dynamics, that's really when I started to blossom. So figure out what your strength is and add that to the piece. If you can play louder than most people and play at a very high level, a very convincing level when you're playing loud, then maybe play the second bar louder than the first bar. But if you feel like you can play soft and make it very convincing and still have core to your sound, then do that. Don't just follow what everyone else is trying to do with the piece. You're your own person, so you need to be able to express that. But also, don't go about just, changing everything. Like, obviously, don't go about making that all legato. It wouldn't make sense. It's not convincing. But, a couple things here and there can be. So really decide, truly think, and figure out what you want to do. Maybe instead of practicing this etude at first, when you first approach this etude, look through it and be like, what could be interesting? Like maybe figure out maybe a map of what you want to do and be willing to change that. If you just go about learning the notes and rhythms, you might just engrave it in your head, like, oh, this is how I'm going to perform it every time. So if you approach this like before you even start learning the notes, here's the game plan that I'm thinking about doing, then you allow your mind to sort of open up to more ideas in the future when you really get closer to that audition date, whenever it may be. So really practice this one slowly. Keep the parts that are there true to the music, like the mezzo forte, the crescendo, the ritardando, the piano. Do not do those. Those are written there for a reason. But you know, if you have some things you'd like to change, just small things, don't obviously make it significantly different where it doesn't even sound like the etude, but you know, if you feel like you can do that and do it at a high level, go for it. If not, just go for performing it straight off the page, exactly how you'd like it to be. You know, decide what's best for you and go from there.